Okay, now I think we are good. I'm just looking at the tube's view, waiting for it. Looks like we are good, I think. It's loading up, and it looks like we're finally there. Stupid restream again. All right, so welcome everybody to another episode of the Geeks of Rage podcast. And today I have a special guest, as you can see, fellow content creator, uppernimbus. He is across the pond from me. It is a good 10:30 in the morning for him, where it is 7:30 for me at night. Welcome, brother. How are you doing this evening? Well, I should say morning for you, evening for myself.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I went for my morning run. Well, I should say walk. Had some breakfast, and here we are.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, actually, the irony is I had coffee and stuff but it's not morning, but it's for me to just to stay awake because like my days, I'm usually up at about 5 in the morning, and even when it's not my day off, because usually I wake up at 4 in the morning for work, but even on my days off, I'm still up by 5, maybe 6 o'clock. That's so 6 o'clock in the morning is like sleeping in for me these days, sadly. And I see we got Frank and Koi Fish in the chat so far. Welcome, fellas. Hope you guys are having a good evening and we can keep you guys entertained for the evening. And feel free to post up in the chat as well. And, we'll try to engage with you guys as much as possible along the way. So to kick things off, we are going to go over, I should say uppernimbus is going to go over rather, if you want to call it his origin story or what got him into gaming. And then, he can share with us any highlights or things of note that can, popped into his head that he would like to share with us. So the floor is yours.
Okay, so how I got into gaming. Well, see, I'm a big Nintendo guy, so I've had not much interaction with PlayStation or Xbox too much. So it all sort of began because like I'm a kid from the 90s. So essentially, I kind of grew up with the tail end of the Super Nintendo, and then I kind of just was raised with the Nintendo 64. And because Nintendo was there since childhood, every other iteration of like Nintendo consoles, I had to get my hands on. And yeah, so that's why I'm a Nintendo guy. It's kind of just been there since I was a kid. And we did have the original Xbox, and I also got an Xbox 360. So wait a minute, I lied about that. I have had some Xbox exposure, but really the only game on Xbox that I cared about was Halo, and the little bit of PlayStation that I got my hands on was the original like PS1 or what do they call it, the PSX, like back in the
Yeah,
90s.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that was really the only other time I played something that wasn't Nintendo, and that was thanks to my cousins because they they love that thing. They love the original PlayStation. Like they had Tekken, they had what was it? One of those racing games. I can't remember what the name
Gran
is.
Turismo.
Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. They had like a Rugrats game, Crash Bandicoot,
Oh,
Spyro.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so they had like the staples, and like they're good games. Like they're amazing, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say,
But
the
I just
PlayStation had a lot of bangers on it, man.
It did, man. It really did. But it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I can only be aligned with Nintendo because more so these days, like an affordability factor.
Okay.
Like I just don't have enough time or money to invest in all the other systems.
Yeah.
And because I'm comfortable with Nintendo, I'm like, well, let's just stick with what they're doing. But that's like no shade against like Xbox or PlayStation. It's just more like time and money is just so limited. So I'm like, I have to be really careful about what I'm doing or what I'm playing. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the basic origin story, I guess.
So was there anything that maybe I'd rather be a game or event maybe that happened where you just knew like that you probably were going to be a gamer for quite some time, or was it just like a love at first sight type thing? Like it was like an immediate, like you just knew right out of the gate.
Yeah, it's really hard to say because it's almost like, when you try and think back so far to like when you were first conscious,
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you try to think as far back, what's the earliest stage in your life you have memories from like actively? And when I think about that earliest part, games were there. Like Nintendo
yeah,
64 was there, Super Nintendo was there. And it's almost like I don't really think there was a moment where I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm a gamer. Like, oh, this defines me as a gamer. It's literally just a part of who I am.
yeah,
And it's just my nature. So I guess in a way, I just knew from the moment I existed.
yeah.
You know
No.
what I mean?
Oh
I
yeah,
think
no.
that's
I
like the
totally
best
get it.
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of like how that all came to be.
So just to share with you, so I'll just speak for myself here. So kind of a similar thing as far as I just kind of knew games were going to be a part of my life from a very, very young age. My earliest memories that are actually, as crazy as it sounds, they're relatively vivid in my head. As far as I can remember playing these particular games, and I can actually remember where excuse me, my original house that I grew up in. I remember what room I was in, and I was actually playing games on the Atari 2600 with my mom, and we had Pole Position 2, Pitfall, Frogger, um, Junior Pac-Man, and Centipede. So those were the games that I knew that we had, and I can remember being very young. I was probably, honest to God, I think I was only like 3, maybe 4 years old, but I can remember that very vividly, and I just knew, even at that point, like I can even remember just the infatuation I had with it because I can vividly remember my mom telling me that I couldn't just sit here and play games all day, that I had to go do something else. And it wasn't very often that we were even allowed to play the Atari because my dad was very anti games, ironically enough.
Yeah.
But fast forward, we got a Sega Genesis when I was 7, but I did play other games in between that. Neighborhood kids had an NES and stuff like that. So I was always able to play some stuff if I was over at somebody's house, but I just personally never got anything outside of the Atari until the Genesis. But I can say for myself that uh, it's not even, I don't want to say it was just Streets of Rage 2, which obviously I have an affinity for it, but
Yeah.
I will say that that game and Mega Man 2 were the first two games that gave me that itch to really want to push my abilities to really get good at video games instead of just trying to just see what I could possibly do. I really wanted to, get to that next level. And then after playing those games and eventually beating them, uh, going back, because everybody always talks about the dreaded dam level on TMNT on the NES, like it's the worst thing in the world. And then you got people like myself, I'm like, it's really not that bad. But I mean, as a kid, I
Yeah.
do remember like the neighborhood kids, because this was another thing is showing my age a little bit. I know Coy's older than I am, but I can remember the thing before the internet. It was always the neighborhood kids, right? We all played the same games basically, and if you were able to do something that none of the other neighborhood kids could do, it was like you were king of the mountain. So I was the first
Yeah.
one out of our group to be able to get past the dreaded dam level, and everyone was like mind blown, like it's actually possible. And then I can remember having that like kind of stoic look on my face, like, well, what the hell do I do now? Like I was kind of like lost, like, we've tried so hard to get past this level. Now that we've gotten past it, now what do I do? And then it was just like that
Yeah.
that next
Yeah.
thing of trying to figure out what to do. But uh, very briefly, that's what I can remember for myself, is what kind of was like that turning point, or kind of switch again that kind of went off, like that made me go, you know what? I realized like I kind of did have an ability to process stuff at a different rate than some of my counterparts that I grew up with and played games with. Not saying that I'm the best in the world, but just, with the immediate group of friends I had, I realized at a young age that I was able to excel at playing games a lot more than what they did. So it kind of made me want to even get better. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, so that aside, going back to Che, I'm seeing Koi said Team NT gets even harder after that. It does. You're right. It does. I've never organically beat it without, as Koi calls them, the shame states, the save states. I've beaten the game with save states, but the farthest I've ever gotten without save states was the Technodrome, and I die every single time I try to get through it. And that's one I got to go back to and finish because I know I can. It's just a matter of I just got to do it and quit being lazy. So
Yeah.
that's definitely on the list. So putting it back into your spot here, what do you think? Talking about the Switch 2, what's gotten you excited from what you've seen thus far? And I guess, do you have any anticipations or anything like that coincide with it?
Yeah, so like that reveal trailer we had like I think it was about a week and a half ago now.
Yeah.
And when Nintendo officially revealed it, because there was so many rumblings about from insiders with that trailer dropping.
Yeah.
Because see, what we were expecting was Nintendo to say, "Hey, in 24 hours, you'll get the first look at Nintendo Switch 2." Because that's what they kind of did with the original Switch when they called it the NX back then. And people are like, yeah, where's the tweet, Nintendo? Like, is like the announcement, like the pre-announcement?
Yeah.
And what they did was they just shadow dropped it. And I had a feeling that was going to happen. And I felt like it was almost a deliberate move because of all the leaks
Yeah.
surrounding the system. It's almost like, oh, yeah, here it is. It's like, oh, okay. And like, I had some people I was talking to who were kind of hoping and expecting the system to be maybe not what it appeared in the leaks. But I kind of knew that it was going to just be what we saw, like the magnetic Joy Cons. Um, like if you look at the color accents underneath the joysticks, like on the Joy Cons, and also like in the parts, like essentially where the rails would be,
Yeah.
like that's sort of color coded. So it's all one to one. Like the leaks, they were all legitimate. Everything was just real, which is crazy to think about. Like the whole thing just got leaked. So in a way, it's like when we saw the reveal trailer, I was like, that's cool to see it official. It's cool to see Nintendo actually acknowledging that the system exists. But it's
Yeah.
almost like, well, cool, but we already know about it. Like it wasn't really a surprise.
Yeah.
And like that's unfortunate because of the leaks. But at the same time, see, there's this like endless loop where you could blame the leakers, but at the same time, Nintendo knew they were putting this system into mass production. Like they knew that they had agreements and partnerships with third parties to make accessories. Like, what do you think was going to happen? Like, information was going to get out.
Oh
So,
yeah.
in a way, like maybe Nintendo should have revealed the system like 3 months
I
ago
was gonna say
before
way
all this
sooner.
actually happened.
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, like, I'm not gonna lie. I think Nintendo definitely has some blame for it. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, just because like they could have avoided the leaks if they got onto announcing the things sooner rather than later. But anyway, so the system, like, it looks cool. I'm excited naturally because, like I said 10 minutes ago, like, I love Nintendo. But I think what I want to see the most, I want to see the games. Like, I want to see what games we're going to be getting for the new system. And from that trailer, we got what clearly appears to be the next Mario Kart. But I don't know if it's going to be Mario Kart 9 or like Mario Kart 10. Because some people say Mario Kart Tour on like mobile devices is actually Mario Kart 9. Because it had original courses and like different characters and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what the name is going to be, but it's definitely the new Mario Kart. And I think it's definitely going to be there at launch date, because if you look at the sales for Mario Kart on the Switch, it's like 60 to 70 million lifetime sales.
Yeah.
If you like have like 20 odd million Switch 2 units at the ready worldwide, like on launch day, and it's bundled with Mario Kart, or like you get people to buy Mario Kart with it, man, that thing is going to go flying off shelves. Like,
Oh,
you're going to see
absolutely.
people scalping that system to no end just because of the hype around one game, like with that
Yep.
system.
Oh yeah. That's the one thing that Nintendo has done very, very well over the years is basically having that ability of the following of just the staple games. And because I mean, I'm not going to lie, myself included, I briefly talked with Coy about this, saying that, like, I'm going to be getting it on day one. And my reasons for it, it all resorts back to the staple games that my wife and I play, because she's not much of a gamer, but she really enjoys the Mario Party games as much, I do as well. But those are the games that we will play together. So I'm definitely going to get it day one to just continue being able to play the Mario Party games, and then, like, Mario Kart, and then any other Mario platformer type game that comes out with it. Yeah. I mean, that's all I need, and I'm a happy guy. Anything above and beyond that, it's just like an added bonus, So, I mean, you got people
Yeah.
like me that'll buy it just for just those little franchises in of itself. But yeah, regarding the Switch 2 itself, um, I'm just going to touch on this for anybody that might be lurking that did not watch the little reaction vid I did going over it. My biggest area of concern was just I did not like how the Joy-Cons link up, because I didn't like how they got that male piece on the console itself, because I'm just thinking to myself,
Yeah.
and I could be being a little, just overreacting, I guess, maybe, or too cautious. But I'm like, if that thing breaks, your whole console's dead, basically. What the hell are you going to do? You can't link up your controller. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't make sense to me. But, like, maybe they know something I don't. I don't know. But I was just looking at it from the aspect of, I know, like, adults like us, we'll take care of it and that won't be a problem. But obviously, you're
Mm.
going to have a lot of kids that are playing with this, and how kids can tend to be rough with things, and or a
Yeah.
little lackadaisical about how they go about handling things. And I could totally see a kid just putting in that Joy-Con just ever so slightly on an angle, and then just breaking it, and there it
Yeah.
is. Now your console's dead. And I thought, why wouldn't you, if you were gonna make it connect that way, why would you not have put that male part on the Joy-Con itself, so that way, if you did break that male part, you have to replace a Joy-Con versus replacing a console? Like, I mean, granted, I don't want to have to pay for something like that in general over a stupid design flaw, but if I have
Mm.
to, I would much rather pay the, what is it, like 60 or 70 bucks for a pair of Joy-Cons versus whatever the Switch 2 is going to be at launch, which I'm assuming is going to be probably like 400 bucks if I had to take a shot in the dark. So I would
Yeah.
much rather pay the lesser of two evils if I absolutely had to. What were your thoughts on some of that, as far as
Yeah,
the
I agree. Because was it your one of your latest videos you
yeah,
brought that up?
yes,
I totally agree, because look, okay, at the end of the day, I think Nintendo would have put this thing through so much trial and error. So they probably have some type of mechanism in place to limit or prevent that male piece from snapping when you remove the Joy-Cons. So it's probably secure, but still at the same time, you think about it, it's like, if that male piece, like, what if like it, gets overused? Like, what if you keep putting the Joy-Cons like on and off and on and off? And like, what if
right,
that male piece like wears and tears, and then it can't read
yep,
that a Joy-Con's attached anymore? So like, what's going to happen then?
yeah,
That, like you said, that's literally, at least for handheld play, that system could never be used in handheld ever again.
right,
You know what I mean? It's
yep,
like, it's just, it's ruined. And I do think that, technically speaking, having the male piece on the Joy-Cons would have been the better option. But at the same time, you think about it, if you did have the male piece on the Joy-Cons, that would like physically look awkward and also feel awkward because then you've got this protrusion
Yeah.
coming off the Joy-Con.
Yeah.
So like I know they were like, oh well, we want to make the system different. We want to make it magnetic, but it's almost like, do you think they should have just stuck with the rails? Like
Yeah,
maybe they should have just stuck with the rails because that worked for the Switch.
yeah, just
I
try
don't
to
know.
make them a little more sturdy or something. Because that was the biggest problem is just the sturdiness factor. Because like I noticed it, because like and mind you, I didn't even get to play my Switch half as heavy as what a lot of people did. But I noticed
Yeah,
with the original pair of Joy Cons that I got with my Switch, my red one, it started acting funky within like 1 year of me having the
yeah,
Switch. And I'm going, what the hell? I'm like, I haven't even been playing it like that. Like, I can only imagine how some people are probably burning through Joy Cons because if I'm having this issue and I'm playing it, let's say on average, I was probably getting 10 to 15 hours a month at best when I first got my Switch. But you got people that obviously that is their console, so they're putting, at minimum 30 to maybe even 100 hours a month, on their consoles at least.
yeah,
And so if I'm seeing that, I'm sure they're seeing it like crazy. I mean, that was one thing that, like you said, yeah, I agree. The Rails would have been a much better option than what they gave. They just should have tried to figure out how to engineer them to make them maybe a little bit more sturdy so that way they didn't pull maybe as hard on the Joy-Cons, which is causing the connectivity issues and stuff like that, instead of doing what
yeah,
they did. But I don't know, because obviously none of us were in their, meetings and stuff like that. I don't know if maybe that was something they discussed and maybe it was something that they thought they couldn't improve on, which was why they were like, well, maybe we should try to do something else. So I don't know if that was it or not, but just, off the top of your head, I in my head that is, I would have preferred the rails versus what we're getting now, but and especially because of, I'm sure the weight is going to be just a shade heavier because it looks like the screen's bigger and the Joy Cons themselves are a little bit bigger.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's going to put
yeah,
even
definitely.
more tension on that male and female, like, well, basically it looks like a USB slot. It's going to put a little more tension on there when you're holding it. But yeah, that was my main concerns. I did like the kickstand though. Instead of having just a little nub that kicks out, you actually got a full actual kickstand that came out, that the actual rail, and it flexes pretty good and you can get a good angle on it. I did like that aspect. Um, and then like what Coy said, the backwards
I'm not gonna
compatibility
lie,
too.
because like that new kickstand for the Switch 2, I guess in a way it's cool because it's like a handle.
Yeah.
So you could hold it by the handle. I mean, I probably wouldn't do it, but you could.
Yeah.
So it's better because it fills up the whole like width or the length of the Switch console.
Right.
But I mean, with the Nintendo Switch OLED, that is my favorite kickstand because not only does it fill like the whole length of the system, but it's like a really sturdy, like thick uh kickstand. It's just this big wide kickstand. That's what I love about the Switch OLED. So that like completely beat the original kickstand out of the park, which was like you said, the little nub.
Yeah, that's the only one that I knew. I
But
didn't know that the OLED actually had a new kickstand on it. I just thought it had the built-in Ethernet port. That's what I thought was the only difference. I didn't know it had a new kickstand.
it's my favorite kickstand because it's just really sturdy. So them like taking away all that plastic and making it just like this U-shaped handle, like it's fine, but it's also kind of like I don't know, like it just I don't know how to describe it, but it doesn't look as good as the OLED kickstand. And maybe they've done it like that because maybe more stuff inside the Switch too, like more processing and
Yeah.
different chips and all that. So they need to make more space for that. So that's probably why they've done it, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. Nintendo's gonna Nintendo. Like as much as like of a fan I am of Nintendo, I'm not that fanboy where everything they do I agree with, or everything they
Right.
do I'm like, oh my god, like Nintendo's the best, like they're better than the rest. Like
Yeah.
I've seen some of the darkest times of Nintendo, like especially the Wii U days. And yeah, like they still do some things that kind of kind of really annoy me.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whole thing, like how you're saying with like the mail piece inside the Switch too, until we get our hands on it, at the moment, just like you, like I'm not really a fan of it because I'm like, what if something goes wrong?
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I could just, oh my gosh, because like I'm just thinking of it. I mean, granted, I'm a new parent. My son is only 5 months old as of Sunday, but I'm just thinking from that aspect now, because when he starts getting older, I'm
Yeah,
assuming anyways that he's gonna probably want to play video games because he's gonna see me doing stuff, so he's gonna want to start playing stuff. So
yeah,
I'm looking at it like, man, when I have to go and I'm gonna be buying some new consoles and stuff, he's gonna want to start playing them, and I'm just looking at it as like, oh, well, how is the kid gonna handle it? So that's why as soon as I seen that, I was like, oh, I
yeah,
just kind of grimaced, like, oh my god, I just know that there's gonna be plenty of Switch 2s that get just ravaged from that aspect.
yeah. I mean, I'm lucky that I don't have kids, but at the same time, I feel like even as like careful adults, I feel like one slip up from us, even if we're super careful, one slip up and that could just like ruin everything.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing is like I could see like us adults, we're gonna take our time plugging it back in, but how kids think. Like I can even remember like even myself when it came to certain things like say the N64 with the Rumble Pack. You're not thinking about how you're putting it in. You're just like, oh, it slides in there. Let me take it and just slam it in there. You know what I mean? And you're just thinking everything's gonna line up all nice and pretty because it's supposed to. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
oh man, yeah, that definitely that definitely was my biggest area of concern because that's just a dead console. But outside of that, I
yeah,
know again I know Coy knew more about it than what I did as far as the specs and stuff because that was something I didn't get a chance to looking around to. But I know that the specs obviously improved and the hardware it's like the hardware itself overall is going to be improved. So that'll be
yeah,
nice and I'm curious to see how the Switch 1 games are going to look on it as far as like is and I would like to think it's going to kind of make them look better, but I just want to I just curious to see how much better is it going to make them look because
yeah,
uh, I think there's a lot of those games that are on the Switch that I think that was the only thing that I could say anything bad about the Switch was I was actually shocked that they didn't improve on the graphics like how Xbox and PlayStation did for those generation of consoles. But I mean, they weren't bad still because without going down the rabbit hole too much, I've had conversations with people that I am of the mind where graphic wise, honest to God, if you make games look like how they did on the 360, but they were great games, I'm okay with that. I don't need to have graphics that look like it's basically as real as you can get without it being real. Like I really don't care at this point. I just prefer a really good game and how it's presented. It doesn't need to knock my socks off, so to speak, on the graphical side for me to really get
yeah,
engagement from it.
yeah,
So yeah, so like that, like I said, I'm not trying to beat Nintendo up too bad on that side. It's just, that was the one thing I was kind of, if I had to critique it, that was my thing, was I just didn't understand why they didn't try to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, on the graphical side when the PS4 and what was the Xbox One were relevant. But yeah. Oh, welcome, Bowler. It says hello. I'm gaming, but have you on in the background. Nintendo had never been about graphics though, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, I guess, and I understand too. Like Nintendo's also been the family friendly market, and I totally get it. And they hit it out of the park with that. I can't argue that. And another fellow creator, Iowa, Retro Gamer Dad, was talking about like when it comes to the Switch and stuff like that, it for like family functions and stuff. It's a type of a console that you don't have to be a hardcore gamer to be able to play and get enjoyment from. You could be like, hey, I'm gonna play with whoever that maybe plays games once a year, and it's typically around this time of the year for Christmas or whatever family gathering you get, and you can play games like Mario Party or Mario Kart and just for shits and giggles and nothing too competitive and stuff like that, just because you're just trying to get enjoyment from it. And that's definitely something that they have been able to hone in on and really, I don't want to say corner the market, so to speak, but that's just been their niche, and they've been executing it rather well in that regard.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, those are the only times they were ahead of the game. Oh, yeah. So I guess going into our next piece of conversation, unless anybody else has something they would like to add on the Switch, we're going to be going into some random topics, if you will. So, and I know since Coy and Bowler are in the chat, you guys can chime in as well, get your guys' thoughts in here. So, do you need a CRT TV for retro gaming? The reason I ask this, now I know everybody has their opinions. I will just speak on my behalf. I'm not a purist. I understand why people would suggest you play on a CRT TV, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that say, no, if you're gonna play, you gotta play on a CRT TV. So, Nimbus, I don't know how much retro gaming you do, but what would be your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I wouldn't really have the greatest knowledge on this topic. But like, because really, like, the only retro stuff I actively played was technically, like I said earlier on, Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64.
Okay.
And like, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole CRT thing. Like, is that like in regards to? I'm really bad with technicalities, but if you put a retro game on like a digital TV, is it the whole issue with like the scan lines in the game where if it's on a CRT, like it's suited for the CRT and it doesn't look as like scan line-ish? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, a lot of people outside of just seen Koi was talking about, so like light gun games, you can't play light gun games on LCD or LED screens. It's got it because the way that the technology was, it was made for a CRT TV and how.
Oh, okay. Yep,
So
yep, yep, yep.
like there's stuff
Gotcha.
like that. But I will say, I just, I fired up my TV just to take a picture for the thumbnail I used for this video, and I just popped on Streets of Rage 2 just to have it as part of the picture, even though I blurred everything, but still. But I took the picture and I'm like, man, it's been so long since I fired up the CRT TV, and when I just let it play out and was watching the demo of the game playing out, I'm going, man, this actually looks really, really good, even though it's not on, it's not a game being played on a modern TV. Like the graphics actually looked rather well, like the color palette looked really good. And I was quite surprised
Right.
just because it's probably been at least 6 months since I fired up that TV. So when I actually got to see it again, I'm like, God, like it really it does make a difference, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a have to. But I guess you could say if you want somebody to get the quote unquote full experience, sure, play it on a CRT TV. The funny thing that I'll say, quick story about the CRT TVs. So my nephews, they never were ever around an old TV like that until they came down into my basement one day and they were wanting to play some games. And they asked me they asked me, first of all, they thought it was a monitor. They're like, why do you have a monitor? That's not a monitor. That's a TV, because they thought it was an old computer monitor.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I was like, no, this is actually an old TV. So when I went to go turn it on, like how it like makes that. I don't want to say it's a loud noise, but you know how they're kind of noisy, right? Like it's got that buzz going on, and like my
Yeah, yeah.
nephew goes, why is it screaming so loud? And I was like, what are you talking about? and, I told him, I was like, I don't know. I said, I think it's
Oh
because we
man.
grew up with them that like you almost like you don't, you just kind of like mute it out. Like you don't really think about it because you've been around it so much. You just kind of just, it's just, you don't even pay attention to it. But he couldn't get over it. And he's like, I can't play like this. The TV's too loud. But, uh,
Yeah.
but they did actually agree that they were actually shocked at how the games actually looked on the TV. And they actually did have an appreciation for how they looked, but they they because they're kids, they want the latest and greatest and all that stuff. But actually getting them to be able to play light gun games, now that was fun because they never played any rail gunners and stuff like that, so being able to let them experience that, and I just got to watch their eyes just get real big, like that moment of, oh my god, this is so awesome. Like, I was like, it just made me
Yeah.
think of how it was for me when I was a kid, and I absolutely loved it. And I was like, yeah, that's how you need to be playing games, boys. Get in there. like, yeah, it was a good moment. But yeah, so Koi's saying CRTs have no motion blur, but yeah, 240 hertz and above OLEDs has closed the gap with black frame insertion. So yeah, I'll just say, I just wanted to hear what others might have said about that in the chat, because I knew there were some people in there that knew about those types of things. So that's why I just wanted to pop that one off real quick. But I guess this was one that you and I talked about very briefly as well, Nimbus. So what what is a game? Rather it's retro or new, doesn't matter, but what is a game that off the top of your head people dub as being too hard, but you know that it's a game that you yourself have beat and you're like, it's really not necessarily too hard, but maybe it's one of those games that you just have to put the time into it to really learn and
Yeah.
understand what you need to do to, go through and beat the game.
Oh man, that's a good question. Just trying to think. Like, I think like for me, it's more like elements in games that people talk about rather than like a whole game itself.
Yeah.
So like the most notorious one that everyone would know about is the whole, oh, how hard the water temple is in Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
So you've heard of that one, haven't
Yes.
you?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a
So
long
like
time since
I've
I
had,
played through. I should say I haven't beaten the Ocarina of Time. I've gotten quite a bit through it. I have gotten through where the water temple was at, but I never actually got to defeat Ganon. My buddy actually finished my file out for me, but I never actually
oh
got that
wow.
far. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so like that's one of the things, like, because like I was saying, it's only really elements from games where people would be like to me, oh, that's so hard, I can't like get through it, I can't figure it out.
yeah,
And I might have found it personally like easier or didn't have as much trouble as somebody else. And even though, yeah, it's basically meme worthy with the whole water temple, it's still one of those perfect examples where I never really had any like major issues with the dungeon. Because like one thing I've got a little bit of a knack for is I'm pretty good at reading maps, like
yeah,
in games, but also in real life. Like I don't know what it is, but I just have a really good sense of direction, and I've got pretty good memory of like, so when you think about dungeons and games, like specifically Zelda, like I've got good memory of like, well, I've been there, I've been like to that room, like I've collected that key.
yeah,
Like sometimes like I might be like, oh, have I been here? But most of the time I can navigate a dungeon and not really have many issues with it. Because like I don't know, like I think like a lot of it with the water temple in Ocarina of Time was, it was clearly the whole thing of when you got to change the water level. Like you got the three different levels. And I think where people got like mixed up was trying to like read the map
yeah,
in conjunction with raising the water levels, because they're like, oh well, if I lower it here, like, but I can go through there, but then I can't progress further. and then you got to go to like another room, but re-raise the water level to like get that key or
Yeah.
get the hook shot, so you can bring it back down again and then go through. So I think that's where people get confused. They're like, oh, this corridor looks like that corridor, and I remember that like spiky ball that rolls at me, or that clamshell that like bites me or something. Like, I can see where the confusion lies, but I don't know. Like, I didn't really have that much trouble with the water temple. Like, I think that's one of those examples where
Yeah.
there's still people I know who like get really enraged by trying to get through the dungeon, but I'm like, it's not that bad. Like, just pay attention to the map. Like, that's all you really have to do. Like, that's my best advice. Just pay attention to the map.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing
Yeah.
too.
So
Like I think what that is, that's a good example that, and this is how I'm interpreting it anyways. I think that's a lot of being mentally lazy. You're just refusing to remember the
yeah,
patterns that you've came across, but you would
yeah,
rather go, this is stupid. I don't know why I can't figure this out. It's because you're just not taking the time to go, all right, what have I done? And then what do I have to do differently? And you have to really go through the
yeah,
process of that, and then remember, like you say, remember the rooms, and remember, okay, I went this way, I tried doing this, I tried doing that. Eventually you'll get there, because there's only so many things that you can do before you'll finally get to where you need to go. And
yeah,
I can't sit here and say that there haven't been times in games that maybe I finally did break down and like maybe use a walkthrough to be like, okay, I've sat here for like, I'm talking 5+ hours trying to figure out what the hell it is I'm trying to do. I've really exhausted my brain and I really have no clue what I'm trying to do. Okay, that's different. At least you're making a solid attempt. But when you just go in and it's been like
exactly.
20 minutes and you're going, okay, this is stupid. It's just like, stop it. You're not even trying. You know? At least give it a
Yeah,
fair
yeah.
shake before doing something like that, you know?
Like, I'll tell you what though, like just like on that subject of feeling like your brain is fried, like
Yeah.
it's the worst with like puzzle games or games with puzzle elements. And of
Yeah.
course, like as we know, that's what Zelda dungeons are. Like, it's just puzzles upon puzzles.
Yep.
And some games, man, like, because I do like a good variety of genres with video games. And one of my favorite type of like games to play are kind of like the visual novel detective games. And one of the games on the Switch that I really love is called AI The Somnian Files. And yeah, it's like a crime detective game. And there's like some pretty, I don't know, like interesting puzzles you got to figure out. Now, it was actually in, I think, the sequel of that game, which I played like a year and a half ago. And one of the like areas where you had to do detective work and you're like scanning like objects and trying to find puzzle patterns and deciphering codes on like a piece of paper. It was just one of those moments where like I was there for about 2.5 hours trying to figure out like what this code meant on this paper, and I could not wrap my head around it. The one thing that really annoys me, because I don't like feeling defeated. Like, I can get
Oh
really
yeah.
competitive
Mm-hmm.
even in like a single player experience.
Yep.
And one thing I really hate is feeling like you've tried everything and you've attacked it for like, yeah, 2, 3+ hours. And you're like, okay, I've done everything I can possibly do. I've thought about every possible like method that I can possibly think of. And then you just want to get a little bit of a sneak peek of what a hint might be. But then you end up like seeing what the answer is. The one thing it like infuriates me the most about all that is when you see what the answer is, you're like, oh, I would have figured that out. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
in
the
your own
stupidest
mind, you're
thing in
like,
the
I
world.
would
You're
have.
going, why? Well, how did I not know this?
Yeah,
It's like, yes. Oh, I totally get that.
yeah,
That happened to me a lot
yeah.
with RPGs growing
I
up.
hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like then I just want to start beating myself up because I'm like, oh well, if I just did another half an hour, then like I would have been able to figure that out. Because you know your own minds, like
Mm-hmm.
you know how
Yeah.
you work. Now, I have had it the other way where I looked up an answer for a puzzle in Tears of the Kingdom, like by the way, and when I found out what the answer was, I'm like, I'm glad I looked this up because I would have never figured this out. where it was like kind of in plain sight, but also like really cryptic. And it's not really a spoiler because it's got nothing to do with any like the major story dungeons. But you know how like Breath of the Wild, and have you played Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom?
I've only played Breath of the Wild, the first one, and I only got, I'll be honest, I think I only played that one for about maybe 3, 4 hours. I think is about as far as I got into
Right.
it. So I didn't really get too deep into it. And then I just, not because I hated it, it was one of those things where I
Yeah.
set it down and then I just never went back to it for various reasons,
Yeah.
but not saying it was bad because I really did enjoy what I got to, but it was just one of those things I have to go back and I do need to go back and play it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's understandable. Like I totally get that. Um, but like you remember how like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had them as well. But do you remember like the shrines? Like you go underground and
Yes.
there were
Yep.
like these
Yep.
shrines you could do.
Yep.
So one of the shrine puzzles in Tears of the Kingdom was it all had to do with like lasers. And I swear I looked everywhere. I'm like, okay, I'm like, I know there's a hidden room or a hidden passageway. I'm like, where is it? I cannot find it because I could see like this chest behind a cage. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've got to go through like a secret walkway to get to that chest because I think I saw like a staircase leading up to it from like within the cage. I'm like, well, there must be like a secret path I haven't seen yet. And in that shrine were these lasers like shooting down from the ceiling. And I avoided them at all costs because I'm like, well, if I touch the lasers, they're going to hurt me. Why
Yeah.
would I go near the lasers? Apparently, those lasers don't hurt you. You're meant to go to the lasers and a trapdoor opens beneath you and then you fall down where the lasers were pointing. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, who in the right mind would see 3 red lasers or 5 red
Exactly.
lasers
Because as a
and go,
gamer,
yeah,
you're
that's
wired
where I
that
need
you
to go?
see something like that and your mind goes, it's a trap immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's gonna like take all my heart out. I'm like, why would
Yeah.
I go to that? And then people are like, oh well, you should have been able to figure it out. Like people on friggin' forums and Reddit and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, that was easy. Like it's kind of like in those spy movies where like, if you set off the lasers, then the alarms go off. It's like, yeah, but like this isn't a spy movie, like or a spy game. Like if I see a laser in a Zelda game, that's gonna cause damage. That's
Yeah.
not gonna open up a trap door. That's
Right.
gonna like take out half of my health. Like I thought that was the most stupidest puzzle in
Yeah.
all of Tears of the Kingdom. And that's where I'm like, I'm glad I looked this up and I do not feel bad about cheating.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
that's
I
where
get
it's
it.
like the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, it's just,
Oh,
it,
no.
it, it still pisses me off.
No, dude, trust me. Like I said, I get it because there was many points. There were certain RPGs I can remember playing as a kid that there was, I think Vagrant Story was the one that I had the biggest issue with when I was trying to play it as a kid. And there was, I think, at least 2 or 3 sections that I felt like I just kept traversing around going, what the hell? Like, I swear I've done all
Yeah.
these things and I don't know where else to go. And it would always be something dumb every time. Every time it'd be something dumb. And I'm like, I can't believe, like, how did I not figure that out? And then I just feel like an idiot because I couldn't figure it out. It's so bad.
Yeah. It's a vicious cycle, man. Like
It
it gets
is.
you every time.
It does. I mean, the good thing is it makes your brain work to try to figure it out, but at the same time, you feel like an idiot because more often than not, it's always just something so simple that you just completely
Yeah.
overlooked and you didn't even realize it.
100%. 100%.
So, um, the next thing I'm going to ask you, um, and we'll see what you say, but there's a reason why I'm asking it because I'll explain my end of it after you go ahead. But do you feel yourself growing out of gaming?
Yeah, like it's a hard question because there's
Yeah,
like some merit to what you're asking.
yeah,
So, see, the biggest thing with me is I wouldn't say like I'm growing out where like, oh, I'm sick of games,
right.
because it's actually quite the opposite. Most of the time, I'm craving to play games. What the issue is, and you could probably agree, being an adult, is it's time.
Yeah.
It's the time factor. It's like what happens is work takes up time,
Yep.
friendships, relationships, obligations, just day-to-day life.
Right.
The moment you go, okay, I've got time of an evening, I could maybe kill up to 3 hours max. And I hate it. I really hate this.
Yeah.
Is you might turn on a game even at like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night. So it's still early. You're like, yeah, like I could be up like until like close to midnight. You're in front of the game for like an hour, and then your eyes start getting heavy. I hate that so much. I'm like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? I'm like, it's 8:30 at night. I should not be this tired.
Yep.
Because all you've been doing all week is working,
Mm-hmm.
or all day you've been working. It's like your body, it's done.
Yep.
And the time is like kind of there, but also not there. And then your body's like, nah, we need to sleep. And I'm like, I don't want to do this, man. Like, I don't want to sleep. Like, I want to stay up. I want to play games.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be that kid again who's got unlimited amounts of energy, who can
Yep.
just power through. Like, I can't even do all nighters anymore, man.
Oh
Like,
God.
if I do an all nighter,
No.
I feel like I'm gonna have a heart attack.
No, I totally get it. I'm in the same boat. Like, man, I was talking to my wife about this. She's like, man, she's like, I can remember like when you were in your early 20s, because I've been working at the same place I've been working at for 18 years now. And
Oh wow.
so when I first started working there, probably up until I was 25, I could stay up until like 1 in the morning and still go to work at 6
Yep.
a.m. and I was perfectly fine. Yeah, I was a little tired, but I could muster through and then I'd be okay. And I would just be like, yeah, I'll just go to bed a little bit early the next day, and then I was fine.
Yeah.
Now, oh my God, staying up past 10 o'clock anymore. And I'm going, oh my God, this is so taxing. It's
Yeah.
so bad.
It's terrible, man.
Yeah, so bad.
It's shocking.
Yeah,
It's
it
no,
is.
I hate it because like as like a gamer at heart,
Yeah,
you wanna play games. You wanna
yep,
be lost in a story, or you wanna like play something really fun and engaging, like something simple.
yeah,
But even that is a big ask. Like
yeah,
it's just why?
yeah.
Why?
Oh, I get it, man. Like just even shoot, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I had it in my head when I was gonna get off of work. I was like, all right, because usually we lay my son down at 6 o'clock, because that's when he tends to want to fall asleep. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna lay him down, and usually what I'll do is I'll lay him. He's got like this little thing that he lays in that's on the chase of the couch. So because we got a sectional, so I'll lay him there, but my laptop I'll have sitting on my lap, and then I'll emulate whatever, right? So in my mind, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna lay him down, and then I'm gonna play some games. And I literally laid him down. I sat there and I just looked at my laptop. And the idea of even putting it on my lap seemed taxing. And I was like, nope, we're not doing this right now. And I just sat
Oh my
there.
God.
It was so bad. I just was like, I can't believe I've gotten to this point in my life that just even the thought of trying to play a game right now is just mentally taxing. Like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm so exhausted. I'm like, no, I'm just going to sit here and aimlessly stare at the TV, and whatever is on is what I'm watching.
Oh, man.
That's right,
That's so
Frank. Old man
relatable.
Roy. That's right. I am, man. I'm getting there. Oh, God. I'm 38, feeling like I'm way older. It's like, good God, man. But
Terrible.
real quick though, as far as my end of that question is, I feel like I'm growing out of it, but in different ways. So
Yeah.
kind of like echoing what you said, yes, the time is a huge factor because you're trying to do so many things, right? And of course, you and I were creators, so now that takes time away from playing games because we're
Oh
trying to
yeah.
make stuff. So now it's like, the time you do have, now you're shrinking it even more by trying to make videos and stuff like that. So there's that aspect. But me, I've noticed now, some of you guys, I see Bowler's still with us, and I believe Coy is, and Frank, I know you're with us as well. You guys tell me in the chat, have you gotten to the point to where almost like it for lack of a better term, you know what you like and you just disregard other games because you know, given the fact of the amount of time you have and all these other factors, since you know what you like, you'll disregard a lot of other games and go, nope, I got my formula. These are the games I like. These are the types of games I like. And that's all I'm going to play now because I really don't have all this amount of time to play all these different genres of games. So like I'm not a fighting game type of person. Like yes, I'll play games like Smash Bros. Like I watch it. I used to play them like as live streams to just as like a community thing, so people could just kick the shit out of me and just get laughs, right? But I'm not like a fighting game guy. I played Street Fighter and old Mortal Kombat back in the day, but that was it. Like I never went down that rabbit hole. Racing games like outside of, Mario Kart, I could care less about. Like I liked them, but they don't really give me that fulfillment like other types of games do. So there's a lot of games that when I see them, or one game, and I know Frank's gonna know this because I'm gonna say it like how I used to do because it infuriates me because I don't understand like why people love it so much. Is Minecraft. I don't understand why people love that game so much. I played it and went, I don't get it. Like it's okay, but like the amount of like passion and affinity for just one game, because like I got a nephew that literally plays nothing but Minecraft, and I'm like, my mind is blown because I'm going, bud, you have like an endless surplus of games that you can play, but you got this tunnel vision of playing Minecraft, and I don't get it. It's like I just don't understand it. Or Fart Night, like my God, can it stop? Like those are the two games that I hear my nephews playing the most is Fortnite and Minecraft, and I'm like, oh my God. You kids, man, like I don't understand. It's like I'm being old man, get off my lawn. Like you kids these days, damn it.
I'll tell you what, like Minecraft and Fortnite is like they're such the stereotype games for like kids of today, but it's so true. Like the amount of them who are just obsessed with those endless online games where
Yeah,
there's no end.
yeah,
Now, look, I'll be honest here. I've played a bit of Minecraft in the past because I don't know, like it was something that people were talking about when it
yeah,
came to like Nintendo Switch back in what 2017. I was like, okay. And yes, I do find it enjoyable, but the thing is, the two things about Minecraft that really irk me is number one, it messes with my OCD. Like I get very obsessive about how I play games and have I completed games? Have I done all the things in the game? And then especially a game like Minecraft where it's like endless creativity.
yeah,
I'm never satisfied with anything I make. I'm like, I just built this house or I built this like village or something. I'm like, yeah, but like I could just keep adding to it. I keep building on it, like, or I could change this, I could change that. I'm like,
yeah,
when's it good? When's it not good? And it messes with me like on an obsessive level.
yeah,
And then yeah, the other thing is like it doesn't end. Like technically you could get credits in Minecraft to show up after you do certain things,
yeah,
but like it doesn't end. Like this is why I prefer things like JRPGs, because like it's this big epic story.
yeah,
You can get such a fulfilling experience from a JRPG. Like I can play it, I can enjoy it. It's my experience. It's a single player campaign.
yep,
Once I get to the end, like yes, I could go back and do side quests and try and complete the game 100%, but at least you can get to the end, see actual credits,
yeah,
have a complete experience and be like, wow, that was amazing. And then move on to the next one. Like, because that way, at least you're getting like good diversity from games you're playing. Like,
yep,
there's different things out there to experience. And I'd much rather do that. So, yeah, maybe going back, what, 8 years ago, tried a little bit of Minecraft. I didn't mind it, but it's not the game that defines me or like
right.
my generation. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then the only other thing that I've noticed too, and again, you guys let me know if it's if you guys kind of fall into this as well. But I notice my attention span, like I don't I don't feel that I get like when I was younger, I could play a game and I'm so immersed into it, I would get that almost like what they would call how they used to call it, like for somebody who plays like a like for instance, I think they called it like the Mozart effect or some crap like that. Like for somebody who like played the guitar or something like that, like you can sit there and play, and the next thing you know, it's been like 5 hours, but in your mind, it really
Yeah.
hasn't been like that. I don't have I don't have that anymore. Like when it comes to games, I used to be able to sit down and I could play for 6 hours straight, no problem. And I never even had to think about it. Now it's like, if I
Yeah.
even hit the 3 hour mark, I mean, that's like a feat anymore. And I'll notice my brain start to drift like after maybe an hour, maybe after two. And I'm like, all right, I'm like maybe the dopamine hits don't come like they used to anymore. I don't know, but it just,
Yeah.
like, I just feel like my attention span just it doesn't I don't focus in on them like I used to.
Yeah. I've got that with, I mean, yeah, quite a bit of games as well, which is also adds on top of the whole thing of being too tired or not having enough time to play games. And then if you're not engaged in a game you're playing, then you feel like it is such a slog to even get through it. However, like a game has to be really special to hook me. And as you were saying, that Mozart effect where you're just sort of drawn in and then like time has gone by and you're like, oh, but it's only been like 2 hours, but like then 8 hours has gone
Yeah.
by. Like
Yep.
it has to be a very particular game that hooks me. And I've had that, maybe more so like when I was playing a bit more actively like 3 or 5 years ago. So like um Xenoblade Chronicles 3, because I love like the Xenoblade games.
Yeah.
So I feel like they always seem to hook me every single time. Like the stories in those games are just I cannot even explain it. It's so good. Like it's just one of the best things ever, I swear to God. And I swear like even if I get older, like I'm always going to be hooked into playing Xenoblade. I feel like they'll always find a way to get me coming back, and it'll be one of those priority games where I could just take off like a week of annual leave and just play Xenoblade. Like it's one of those rare exceptions. And normally I'd say the same about Zelda.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, even though I still haven't even beat Tears of the Kingdom when it comes to the story, and that game's been out for nearly 2 years. So yes, I like Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, I think it's a really good game. But I'm going to be honest, man. Like, I think Breath of the Wild to me personally is better than Tears of the Kingdom. Like, I much prefer Breath of the Wild. Like, I had a much more engaging and better experience with that game.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of it is maybe, yeah, I was a little bit younger. Like, I wasn't as exhausted. I wasn't actively working. So I had more time up my sleeve. But also, I just think being in that version of Hyrule for the first time, having an open world Zelda for the very first time, I think that was so engaging in itself. And I felt that magic of like, what's behind that mountain? Like, what am I going to find when I go past those set of trees? Like, what is it? Like, what's going to be out there? And that sense of wonder was so apparent with Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom, like it being set in the same world, it's like, okay, cool. There's like some new things and new landmarks, but it wasn't as engaging or magical to me. And that's what I mean. It's only some certain games these days which can draw me in. And I feel like, yeah, I'm locked in. The Mozart effect is taking place.
Yeah.
Um, so I can't dismiss every game because I know some games will still draw me in despite being a little bit older than what I used to be.
So Koi, I know obviously you played the game. So Koi Fish was saying Breath of the Wild was more of a quote natural experience where you didn't feel under the gun as much as you do with Tears of the Kingdom. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very fair statement. Very fair statement.
Um. So let's see. Um. What would you say would be some of your favorite characters that you've came across in gaming, like that you would say you would put like on a high pillar, so to speak?
Oh man, gee, that is a really tough question because like you could talk about anyone, like even like side characters. Uh oh, geez, man.
Well, how about this? How about which ones did you gravitate towards the most? Like the ones like what was your or I should say what was your favorite characters to play as? Like what would you say would be like the ones you enjoy playing the most?
Yeah. Even it's still a really tough question, but I'll do my best to answer it. So like I think like just naturally like I love Link. I really love Link from The Legend of Zelda. Like the gameplay in Zelda games has always been so fluid, and just controlling Link, like the gameplay aspect of playing as Link has always been so fun. And so with like, Mario, like
Yeah.
it's always been just fun controlling those characters. And I know like Mario and Link aren't really like deep, meaningful characters that really bring a lot to the table where you can connect with them like on an emotional level. But gameplay wise, I think Mario and Link 100% just feel amazing. Um, Also, Master Chief from Halo, like Halo plays like well, at least the original trilogy plays like a dream, man. Like that's like one of the best gameplay experiences in my life. And the character of Master Chief is just like badass. Like,
Yeah.
how could you not like look at Master Chief and be like, he's so cool? Like, do you know what I mean? Um, so like I'd say like they're some of my favorite characters to play as. In regards to characters more from like a story perspective, like that would be like characters from more like like JRPGs
Yeah.
because JRPGs are all about like story.
No, yeah, you
And
get
of course,
attached to
as I
characters
mentioned,
like crazy. I get that. 100%.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like from Xenoblade, like because it's my favorite JRPG franchise. Just like a lot of characters from those games. Some main characters, some side characters. Yeah, there's characters in Xenoblade who you really gain an affinity for, and it genuinely affects you emotionally.
Yeah.
Like not many games can actually bring me to tears, and I'll start crying. Xenoblade 3, oh my god, man, I can't even tell you anything because of just the immense spoiler territory. But Xenoblade 3, there is a moment in the game like two-thirds in, and there was a lot of foreshadowing about what was going to happen. But it's almost like I was in denial of the game going through with what it was teasing,
Yeah.
like emotionally speaking. It was one of the few times where I actually had to go grab a box of tissues and just wipe up my tears. Like, yeah, it's oh man, I'm even getting emotional just thinking about it. um, it's seriously one of
But
those
that's a good
games
thing though.
that
That means it's tugging at you and you're vested in it, you know what I mean?
that's it, man. That's it. So yeah, like character development in Xenoblade 3 is the game wasn't perfect at first. Like there was
Yeah.
things about the game that kind of irked me. But the more I've looked into like the lore and the thematics and philosophy and all the analysis videos on Xenoblade 3, and more information that's come out from the developer about the game, like from a story perspective,
Yeah.
it really is that good. Like it's yeah, it's phenomenal. It's so good.
Now, I'm I'm not trying to poke fun or anything. I was raised to be very very thick skinned, so it takes a lot for me to tear up or anything, but there was two times that I can think of right off the top of my head where I could definitely got the choked up feeling a little bit. One was from a game and one was not. But the game one is in Legend of Legaia when the I believe the name is Terra was the the hell they call it. Damn it, the things that attach their arms, and I'm blanking on the name of it. And I should know because I'm playing it right now. But when the wolf dies, I felt so bad because I'm a very I'm an animal person, right? I have more empathy
Yeah.
to animals than I do with people. but but when I seen that, I'm like, I immediately was like, that is horrible. Like, why'd they have to go and kill the poor wolf, right? But
Yeah.
the only other thing that choked me up, and I know people that have seen this movie, especially when you've seen it as a kid, it's like you're gonna know what I'm talking about. The movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, when the ant dies.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
That was the
yeah.
only other time, like when that happened, I was like, "Oh my god, this is terrible," and I felt that heavy feeling in my chest, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But yeah, those were the two things that definitely I can say I go back and when I think about those things, that it definitely those choke me up a bit. But no, but,
Yeah.
but those are good things though, because that's like I said, that's when you're vested in and your brain's locked in on what's going on, and you're putting yourself in that position, and you're feeling the story instead of just watching the story play out, which is always a good thing.
Exactly.
Um, which I've tried to get better at over the years. That's the one good thing. You can always change the way your brain works, and I've learned how to get to that point because uh, it's a vulnerability thing, and people, rather you
Yeah.
accept it or not, that's what it is. It's you're letting yourself be vulnerable and actually bringing on those emotions and stuff like that you're witnessing instead of just watching it play out. You're really trying to get into the meat and potatoes of it. But I guess we can going after the your favorite characters thing. I guess I wanted to kind of see what your thoughts were on this. This was a topic that I'll be eventually doing a video about, but I figured we can talk about it here. Is what are your thoughts? Because I've noticed over the years, like I guess you could say, for a lack of a better term, like the death of mascots. And I've kind of feel like
Oh, yeah.
for being somebody who grew up with them, you kind of, I guess in my mind, in hindsight now, you kind of see the importance of having those staple characters attached to whatever consoles, that you're going to be playing on. And it's
Yeah.
and I guess I wanted your thoughts on like how you feel about that, and if you feel that it is important to have those types of things connected to whatever consoles are being released.
Yeah. So, like, I really love mascot characters who represent like what systems they come from, or like, different gaming studios and stuff like that. And yeah, like now that you mention it, I do notice that the whole mascot thing, it's not heavily relied on anymore to like promote like games. Like deep down we still know characters like Mario is still Nintendo's mascot. Like he's still one of those iconic characters. And I'd say Nintendo is obviously still keeping that alive with the whole mascot thing.
Yeah,
But when you look at it as a collective with everybody else, like Crash Bandicoot,
yeah,
Master Chief, Spyro, Lara Croft, like I guess Kratos is kind of there, but I don't know. Like it's just it does kind of suck that like people aren't, you know, I don't know, in a way positively glorifying the mascots because I
yeah,
really miss that era.
yeah,
Like I miss that in like the 90s and like the mid 2000s. I miss it. Like and not to say oh let's promote console wars, but I miss like the identity with different gaming generations
yeah.
and I
Most
miss
definitely.
I don't know, like it's nostalgia that just it's not there, like you're saying. It's not really a thing people proactively think about. Unless, it's a kid saying, Oh my god, Steve from Minecraft, like, yeah,
Yeah,
he's like the greatest character of all time. And it's just like, yeah, he's iconic and kind of a mascot, but like in comparison to characters like friggin' like Master Chief, who've actually got character depth. Like
yeah,
Steve's got nothing against Master Chief.
right.
Um, yeah, I don't know. So all I can really say is I miss it too. I really do. I miss like here's nostalgia. I miss going into like video stores and seeing them plastered everywhere in like the gaming section. Like that was
Yep,
awesome. Like just seeing their colorful iconography and being like, yeah, I want to like hire out some games and like play them. Like even if it's not like a Crash Bandicoot game or whatever, like just having them present, being advertised, makes you like feel like gaming is alive. It makes you feel like the characters are like there in the real world, like they're there with you.
Yep.
And having not having that really diminishes like almost like their real world presence. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh
does that
yeah.
make any sense?
Hmm.
So
No, I get it.
I think that's yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm realizing is having a lack of promotional mascots for like gaming really hinders connecting the real life aspect to like the gaming aspect. It's almost just like, yeah, they're just games now. Like, it's just a game. Who cares? Like, and it's a little bit upsetting, really, when you think about it.
Yeah. No, I get it. And like, and it's the importance I felt from it in hindsight when trying to look back on why I thought it was important. It was, again, it could be just myself from being able to grow up with seeing the evolution of certain things. So, like, just we'll use Mario for the sake of it for conversation.
Yeah.
But you go from 2D Mario, where, you know, you got your simple formula with Super Mario Brothers 1, and then you see the evolution. You get to Super Mario World, then you get to Mario 64, and you start seeing the character evolve, and you see the move sets change and all these things. And but you're attaching all these things to that character, and you're like, you know, you're wanting to keep playing as that character and see, well, what else are they going to do with them? You know what I mean? But and then
Yeah.
when you just, and I'm not saying like they need to go like all in on it, but I guess I seen the importance of it because it kept you wanting to go in more with whatever that character was. Like, you know, like you said, like Crash Bandicoot, loved Crash. I actually didn't really start playing Spyro until recently, but I can definitely see just from what I've played on Spyro 1 is, you know, I totally get it. I want to, because I want to see the evolution as the games go on as to how he plays
Mm.
out and everything like that. But yeah, when I went back on it, it just, I feel like that's what part of what we're missing in today's age of gaming is those mascots. And I know the running joke is there was a lot of people that would say stuff like, "Oh, they tried making everything a mascot." Not necessarily. There was times where they just came up with characters, but just because it was an animal, they're like, "Oh, see, it's another mascot." Like, you know, say you had Conker's the squirrel, you had Croc the crocodile. Then I can't remember what the hell was that tiger that they came out. It was like Tigger the Tiger or some crap like that that was on the PlayStation. I can't remember what the heck its
Yeah.
name was, but it was just a different game. But I don't think it was meant to be marketed as a mascot per se. But it was just a different character. But
Yeah.
but I do feel like those staple characters, it brings a lot to the table. And then not to mention, just think about this: if you didn't have those types of characters, there would be no Smash Bros. To a degree, I guess you could say. I shouldn't say there wouldn't be no Smash Bros, but the reason why it typically does so well is why you take those staple characters that people have played for years and years and years, and they're like, oh, now I get to fight with them too. Hell yeah, I'm gonna do that. You know what I mean? And but when you're taking all of that out of it, it just, you're not. I mean, well, I'll say, like you said, with the exception of maybe RPGs, you typically aren't going to be getting too attached to characters because you're not going to be vesting that much time into a one-off game.
Mm.
You might like it, you might like the mechanics, but you're not going to be really as invested in that character as you would if you knew that there was more installments to come and it was like I said, a franchise
Mm.
thing and it was going to keep going. That's just, I don't know. I just really think that that's more important than what people give it credit for.
Yeah, I agree. And like that makes a lot of sense as well with Smash Brothers because it's literally putting all the mascots together in one place in one game. And it's just this big, fun, like crazy party. And who wouldn't want that? Like, because you get all kinds of walks of life with different fans from different generations and platforms. And having that all together is really special. And I think a lot of people these days, like younger people, they just don't acknowledge how special and magical the whole mascot era really was for gaming.
Yeah.
Um, and Yeah, I don't know. Like, it'd be nice to have a resurgence with that nostalgia, but unfortunately, you can't force or control people to feel a certain way. So things will be what they'll be, I guess. But yeah, man, at least like we got the memories, and at least
Yeah,
we know
right.
it was the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. No, I get it. Um, I guess I'm just trying to look here. Why do you think, just to play devil's advocate here, trying to see opposite ends of things, because again, this is going back to like we grew up with different things, right? Why do you
Yeah.
think newer age gamers hate old style controllers so much?
Um, I'm just gonna guess. Like, do you think it's just because like the older technology, they would just see it as like clunky? Because like you look at like the NES controller, and it's literally just like a block.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah,
so people be like, "Oh, it's like a flat brick. Like
yeah,
that's not comfortable to hold."
yeah,
So when they've got these sleek PS5 controllers that are like wireless and HD rumble, and like it fits like the grasp of their hand,
yeah,
when they compare that to the rigid nature of retro controllers, like I can see the complaint because they didn't grow up with retro,
right,
but at the same time, it's not as bad as they make it out to be. Like,
yeah.
I feel like they just kind of complain because like they can complain. Um, that's kind of my take on it, I guess.
Um, Mystical says too many buttons. um, uh, I don't know. I think part of it. I'll say part of it, at least from my own experience. I'll use my nephews as the examples because they all vary in age. Some of them are still pretty young, and some of them are in their early 20s now. But um, I think that it's one of those things, and I know that when I was younger, I was stubborn in this regard. If it's old, it sucks. Just immediately, it's like they just write it off because they're like, it's old, stupid, dumb, and
Yeah.
they just don't even want to give it a chance. And like they were clowning on the old Genesis controller, like the original one that looks like the big blocky boomerang one. Like I actually
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that one. I don't know. I thought it was different because I tried explaining to him like why I was drawn to it as a kid. I said, well, I liked it because they're like, why are the A, B, and C buttons so big? I said, in my opinion, it was because back then, what you guys didn't get to grow up with, again, was the arcade era. Now, granted, I was on the back end of it, but I still got to experience playing, video games in an arcade. And the reason why the buttons were that size was because they were trying to kind of emulate the arcade experience at home. So by having those bigger buttons, it wasn't quite as big as the arcade buttons on a cabinet, but they were bigger than what, say, the NES A and B buttons were, so it kind of gave you that arcade type of feel per se. But I tried explaining them, certain stuff, and I could tell it was like they didn't care. At the end of the day, it was just like, this is old. It's just whatever.
Yeah, there's that mentality as well. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like the simple thing of not even trying it because of an age factor, and they're like, "Oh, it must be bad because it's not today's technology." But like, they'll never know, man.
They
They'll never
they
know.
they
That's
won't.
that's the thing.
And that's why I tried to explain to him. I said, I think maybe I was like, yeah, again, speaking for myself here, I felt that I grew up in the right time because I was able to. Now I didn't get to play like everything, but I can at least say I went as far back as I've seen the evolution from the Atari 2600 on, and just seeing how everything evolved and progressed. It was just like I would tell them, I was like, if you were there, I was like, in hindsight, I feel like that was like the best of times because you got to really see everything. I said, because now when new stuff comes out, you guys don't really see a whole hell of a lot of advancement. You don't. It's just oh well, now it's a new console, but really, what major improvements has there been? Not really much. But Um, I guess this kind of segues into another thing. Why do you think gamers are so miserable?
um, I don't know. I guess it depends on the kind of gamer. Do you just mean like people like in like comment sections in gaming communities who just like have something bad to say all the time? Is that what you mean? Like
Yeah, it seems like
people in the
there's just
community?
very negative about things, and instead of just enjoying, because like, I guess because like again, I'm looking at stuff from my own lens here. Like when I was growing up, we always embraced new things, right? We tried to find the good in some stuff to the best of our abilities. Now, granted, yes, there would be games that were like, okay, this game sucks, but you know, even when we seen demos of games, and even if that game did end up being bad, we would still look at the demo and go, I want to at least play that game. You're not dunking on it before you play it. Like how anymore, that's all you ever see is like a new trailer. There's probably like 60+% of the comments are just dunking on whatever the hell it is that's coming out. "Oh, this sucks, and oh, I see what they're doing. Why are they doing it? It's dumb and da da da." And that's all it is every single time. Like they're just so miserable, and I just don't understand it.
Maybe just like the sad reality that through like the power of the internet, it's just easy for people to express their negativity rather than try and make the effort to think positively. Like I feel like people just have their own pent up um rage and frustration. They're like, well, this is a good way of like letting that out. And more like subconsciously, they don't like really think about it and they just say like negative crap. And
Yeah,
especially if they're gamers, like you're going to see those comments on game trailers and like different presentations. Like, for example, like Nintendo Directs, like, because they usually have like the live chat open.
yeah,
And you could have the most amazing Nintendo Direct where they've had like 5 to 10 really powerful announcements. Like, you could have things like, a Metroid, a Zelda, a Pokemon, like all back to back, and like there are these new amazing like games coming up in the next year, and then people would be like, oh, that was a shitty direct, like I would rate that like an F or like a D minus. And I'm like, are you like insane? Like, do you not like these games? Like,
yeah,
surely out of one of the games announced you would actually enjoy it, and five of those announcements are like the hypest thing ever. How could you not like their presentation?
yep.
Now, in saying that, yes, we've had some bad Nintendo Direct presentations, and like they still kind of happen. But I feel like even when like something really good has happened, like people still find something to complain about. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
feel like it's okay. Like, you and I, for example, we've looked at the Switch 2 trailer. We're like, oh, I'm worried about that mail piece, like in the system. Like, I wouldn't really say that's you and I being like negative Nancy's. That's more just being genuinely concerned on a technical level.
right,
Like, that's not really like, oh, I'm here to say this system is bad. I'm here to say
right.
it's going to fail. It's more like
It's just
that
a genuine
caught my
concern. That's
attention.
all.
Yeah, it's more of a concern because we care. Whereas these other people, they're like, yeah, no, screw this. Like, I'm not going to give it the time of day because I don't feel like making the effort to be happy today. Like,
Right.
I wouldn't be able to tell you why these people behave the way they do, but rather than it might just be the fact that it's just easy to be negative. Like that could just be the answer. Like people just want to complain because it's just because they can.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like I anymore. I mean, I'm not gonna like going down the rabbit hole in general, but I'll just say that it just seems like anymore people just want to bitch for the sake of it, and it just I don't understand it because it takes, in my opinion, it takes way more energy to be negative like that than to try and just look at things through a positive lens. And I'm not saying that I'm like the most like chipper person 24/7. That's not what I'm getting at, but to really just always look at everything. Like I see these YouTube channels and everything, it's piss and vinegar. Like, man, like, you have got to be a miserable person. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, does anything make
Yeah.
you happy? Like, I don't my mind cannot go down that far because it's just so taxing and it's exhausting. To see the bad in just everything, I don't know. I just can't understand it. I don't want to understand it. But
Yeah.
there's one thing to critique certain things or to have concerns or whatever, but when you're just constantly on a negative scope on things and you can't even remotely see stuff from a different angle, it's mind blowing to me, and I just don't get how a lot of these people that, like I said, there's a lot of people that I see on YouTube that are like that, and I'm just shaking my head like certain stuff. I can't think of something off the top of my head, but there was something that I did see recently, and I'm like, you're really that revved up about this? Like, I don't understand. Like, and it really wasn't something that, in my opinion, was really that big of a deal or was really that bad for that matter. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could see like why somebody would be like, okay, this kind of sucks, but to take it to the level like that they're taking it, I'm just kind of just shaking my head like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just a waste of energy. Go do something else.
It is because, like I was saying, I think it can be easy for people to let out their negativity and like complain about something.
Yeah.
But in the long run, the more you do it, the more exhausting it becomes and the more shit you feel.
Yeah.
So I think in like the short amount of time, like a short burst, it's easy to say something like that.
Yeah.
But if that's all you're doing, then it becomes forced. Then it becomes they're consciously making decision to be negative. And it's like, why would you even bother continuing at that point? Like, you're gonna have to turn around at some point and like put a smile on your dial. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to be a bit more positive about something because it's just gonna eat you away. And like, I don't know, like you'll be sick. You'll become so sick.
Yeah. Now don't get me wrong. Like, I don't mind going on rants every now and again, but I'll say years ago, there was a point to where um, I don't want to say I tried, but I incidentally made like some videos that kind of like piggybacked, and it was all like negative, and I could feel myself. I could physically like feel myself just like feeling exhausted to even talk about it. Like, it was just, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to do this anymore. Like, I don't even know how people, like, your whole channel is you just do nothing but talk negative. Like, I couldn't even do it for, it was like maybe a month. It ended up being like, I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 videos in a row that it was about a particular subject matter, and it was following up on certain stuff. And I can't remember what the hell it was now. It was so long ago. But that was my light bulb moment of like, okay, I don't mind like ranting about something every now and again, but I am not that type of person to just constantly be in a negative mindset all the time because it is exhausting, and I can't do it. But
Yeah, I agree.
I want to ask you, because I know it's now 2025. So, what do you consider to be retro? And before you answer that, I'm going to tell you what I think is retro, and then you can tell me, is my idea of retro wrong? So, I think as of right now, the 360 PS3 era is now considered retro. So, from that point on and back, that's what I would consider to today's standards as retro, because in my mind the 20-year mark is retro. And I believe, well, I should say the PS3 I believe was 2006 if I recall correctly, and I think the 360 was late 2005 if I remember correctly. I'll look it up really
Yeah.
quick, but I thought that that's what it was, and that's why my brain went to the 360. I think was would be 20 years old this year.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts?
Um yeah, yeah. So I can see it being retro, like to a degree. Like, I don't know why, but like I think because that was what is it, the 360, the Nintendo Wii, and the PS3.
Yeah,
Out
so
of those three, I feel like I don't know why, even though Wii was like trying to be innovative with like the motion controls, which was
mhm.
pretty successful. I don't know, but I see like Wii as the most retro out of the three of them because I feel like Xbox and PlayStation are always striving for like graphic fidelity. And so when you compare the Wii to those two, graphically speaking, it's the weakest and feels the most retro visually speaking.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, that's really interesting because like yeah, there's people who say the sixth generation, which I think, yeah, is the one before that. So original Xbox, GameCube, and PS2, like that's retro. So like I don't know, like me personally, if I think like retro, like I think like old school. Like I think Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, like, over there was the Sega Genesis, and then over here was the Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah.
So like to me, that's like, and again, like it's not like an actual definition, but like it feels the most retro to me. But in saying like generation 6 or 7, so whether it's the GameCube generation or the 360 generation, I can see that being retro. But if someone says, "Hey, like retro gaming," I'll be like, "Yeah, Super Nintendo." Like
Right. Yeah.
I'll think that far back like instantly.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. And cuz that's how the reason why I say the 20-year thing was because for years that's what I used to say cuz like it was like, maybe the mid 2000s I'm like, "Oh, it's not retro until it's like close to 20 years old." So that's
Yeah,
so I would always go like NES, Sega Genesis, SNES. Like I didn't even consider at that point in time N64, PlayStation being retro. At that point, I was like, yeah, because of like
yeah,
how they looked graphically, I was like, no, I don't think those are retro just yet. But
yeah.
yeah, so the 360 came out in November of 2005, and then the PS3 and the Wii came out in November of 2006.
That is so hard to believe. How was that 20 years ago, man?
I know, right?
How?
That's what I was like,
Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah, it's wild. I know. It's like it's crazy, and it's like, and I know in my mind, I can't wrap around it either, thinking that the 360 being on the cusp of basically being retro, like that just blows my mind because I can remember seeing a 360 for the first time, and I'm trying to remember what was I think it was Gears of War. I think that was the first game I ever seen on the 360. Yeah. It was Gears of War, and my buddy rented it. And back when, good old Blockbuster was still around, it was at the tail end of the Blockbuster era, but it was, he got rented Gears of War, and I remember him calling me up, and he goes, "Oh, dude, you got to come over." He's like, I got a 360. It's badass. I'm like, all right, cool. So I remember seeing it, and I thought the graphics were just mind blowing, and also the gameplay was amazing. So it was like that's why I go back to saying, when I piggyback off what I said earlier, was if they could make games look as good as they did on the 360, but also make the gameplay look as good or better, then I would be a happy guy, because I really loved the presentation that we got with games on the 360. Sadly, I didn't really
Yeah.
get to play the PS3, but obviously the graphics were similar in nature. So anything from that generation, I'd be totally happy with. If we nerf the graphics to get better quality games, I'd be totally down with that.
Yeah, like because I'm not too fussed about graphics unless it somehow visually destroys the gameplay experience. Because I mean, like I still somewhat regularly play 64, like to this day. And I was recently playing through Perfect Dark on the 64. And like when you compare that to anything today, it's like, holy crap, it's such a big graphical difference, but I enjoyed the game. Like I
Yeah.
know it's older than 360 and all that, but like I still visually enjoyed navigating through the game. Like it didn't feel grotesque to look at. It didn't feel like unbearable to play. Like it it was really, really enjoyable. But I think like as a standard, if like, yeah, like some games scaled back for that quality, like a quality experience, or if it's 60 FPS, like it runs smoothly. If they scaled back the, the visual graphics to somewhere between like 360 era or PS4 era, like PS4, yeah, because PS3 to PS4. If it's somewhere between there for graphics, doesn't bother me. It really doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And some Switch games are still like PS3 era. Like I don't really care, like still looks good to me.
Yeah. So, off the top of your head, what would you say is probably not we'll start with what was the hardest game that you think that you ever beat?
I would definitely say like one of the hardest I've ever beat
Yeah.
was it's Super Ghouls and Ghosts on SNES, right?
That'd be your hardest one?
One
Well,
of the hardest, like in
yeah.
my top five, like
Yeah.
top five for sure.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have like save states. It's like
Yeah.
because it's like an arcade game. You boot it up, you have to play that whole session
Oh
to
yeah.
like beat the game.
Yep.
So like having what you get hit twice and then like
You're
that's it.
dead. Yeah.
Like for each level or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So playing through that once was like pretty tricky as it is.
Then doing it
Then having to
again.
play it through a second time
Yeah.
while the system's still turned on, you
Yep.
cannot like turn that system off.
No.
That's what makes it hard is it's having to be dedicated to be
Yep.
patient with the
Oh
difficulty.
yeah.
And you got to make sure that you have that. What was it like the princess bracelet or the
Yep. You
power
had to get the
bracelet? Like
bracelet. Yeah. Yep.
you need to make sure that like you've picked it up right before like the final battle.
Yeah, because I made the mistake a long time ago. I remember the first time I actually played all the way through it, and I got the bracelet like in the second level, and it is such a pain in the ass to traverse through the levels using that thing. It's so hard. But yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
if you can try to wait it out, try to wait it out as long as you can. Yeah, definitely.
Like it's one of those games where like that it just has to be running in the background on like the pause screen, and you got to go have a break. Like go make lunch. If you're someone who smokes, go have a smoke. Like
Oh yeah,
you need to have those breaks. Like go for a walk. Like I don't know. Like it's like a whole day experience. Like literally is a whole day experience.
yeah, because that was how it was for me the first time. I actually just recently, it was I'd have to go back and look, but I know it hasn't been quite a year yet. But I played the original Ghouls and Ghosts on the Genesis, not Ghosts and Goblins on the NES, but Ghouls and Ghosts. Uh, and I beat that for the first time without save states and stuff like that. And I think that stream was, I think I was on for just over 3.5 hours because I kept dying so much. It was so bad.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm gonna do it today. And I just kept just pounding it out and trying to freaking make sure that I was gonna get it because it was in my mind. Because I know I've talked about it before with people, but obviously, I go and I try to get the retro achievements and stuff. And obviously, that was one of the achievements was to beat the game. And it was so satisfying when I finally beat it because as a child, that was one for the longest time. I really did. I thought it was impossible to beat. I was like, your reaction times have to be so good. I was like, there's no way
Yeah.
you can beat this damn game. Like they just made this to just troll the hell out of people. And not knowing at the time, I didn't know that it was an arcade port. I just thought it was a console port. I was like, why would they make this so damn difficult? But when I realized, I was like, oh, it's a quarter eater. That's why. But
Exactly.
yeah, but that was one that, yeah, that if that was not the hardest game I beat, I know it's up there. Like you say, like how it was with Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it's up there for sure. Off the top of my head, I would say I would definitely put that up there. But what would you say would be the hardest game that you ever played? Because I know that's a different thing because you could have played something that was just in your mind a little too hard to get through. Because
Yeah.
I know we've kind of all been there. There's been at least something that has kind of pushed you in that regard. But if you can't think off the top of your head, that's fine. Because I'll be honest, I can't even think off the top of my head a game that I know that there is one. I just have to go and look.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like a lot of it is, I wish it came to mind,
Yeah.
but I would literally have to go sifting through history of like my gaming and what's in my collection to be like, oh yeah, that was a bitch to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, I think like again, it's more like elements and moments in games
Yeah.
I can remember where it just drove me insane. And I know like an hour and a half ago we were talking about how um like difficult, tricky things to figure out, like the water temple in Ocarina of Time or that one puzzle in Tears of the Kingdom, like things
Yeah.
like that. So like it's kind of like I'd just be more so treading that kind of territory again, where I'm like bringing up moments in games that kind of infuriated me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know, like because unfortunately I haven't played too many games like over the past couple of years because time factor like being the worst thing. But like
Yeah.
I don't know, just like some like boss battles like in games like where like you think you're strong enough or you got the right equipment and you just like you could be there for days like trying to even like take out like a boss.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I don't know, man. Like actually, I could never beat this game because how grueling it was, how prepared you had to be, and how leveled up you had to be was Bravely Default on the Nintendo 3DS. I could never beat that game because I literally got to the end to like the final boss, which, mind you, clearly had multiple forms to go through. I couldn't even get through like stage one of that boss because I was underleveled. And where the game puts you, because you kind of like go through this portal.
Yeah.
Once you're in this like portal realm, you can't leave. You cannot go back to
Oh.
the world map.
Oh
Like
God.
what? Like so you need to like be well prepared before you go through that portal, and to level up in that like portal realm,
Yeah.
like you can't because the enemies they were either too high level that I couldn't like beat them, or they were like the exact same level. I wasn't getting enough experience of them. It was one of those two things. Then I just couldn't level up anymore to like take out the final boss. And I'm like, well, there goes literally like 60 plus hours playing that game. Like, what was the point?
Yeah.
And like, I don't even think the game gives you warning about having to be prepared. It's like, oh, you
Figure
want
it
to go
out.
beat the final boss,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And like, why do they do that? Like, oh, once you go through here, you won't be able to come back. It's like, yeah, but why can't I go and like explore the world afterwards? Like,
Yep.
why am I then trapped in another dimension? How stupid is that?
Yep.
So that's one of those things in games where I just had to give up. It was impossible. I was too underleveled and I had no idea about the preparation for that boss battle. So
I'll say
F that.
I'm in a similar situation like what you said, but the good thing is that this game has multiple save slots. So I'm going through and finishing up playing Parasite Eve on EX mode, and there was a big jump for some reason because I went through, got all the way to fight Eve, and it was just really, I was struggling really hard, and I'm going, man, what the hell? Like I'm underpowered. So, but it's like the thing, once you get to that point, there's no going back. So I'm like, well, damn it, now I got to go back to my other save spot, and the last one that I saved, it was like a 2 hour gap. So I'm like, damn it, now I'm
Oh
gonna
my
have to go
god.
back and play this for 2 more hours just to get to that point. But I have to grind as well because now I gotta get my level up so that way I know that I'll do enough damage and my defense will be up enough to where I'll be able to absorb the damage being dealt. But yeah, that's like you said, it's like that part. It's like, it's like, come on, it's like you can't go back.
Yeah.
That's just frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
But
annoying.
all right, well, we can wrap it up for the evening. Well, evening on my end, morning for you. You can get your day started. It is nice having you. You can, at this point, if you want to, let the people know where they can find you on the internet.
Yeah. So Um, I'm sure Roy will have my channel linked in the video somewhere.
Yeah, I'll add it to the
But you can
description.
find
I
me on
failed at that right now, so that's my bad.
description. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube. Like that is my main place to be found. So uppernimbus, it's one word. So upper then nimbus, but it's together as one word. I do a lot of JRPG and Nintendo Switch content. Um, and of course, like I'm really keen for the Switch too. So hoping to naturally transition Switch 1 content into Switch 2 content. So if you guys like some modern stuff like that with Nintendo Switch, then I do like different top lists and like I do collabs. So I get people on board and we do like big like list videos together. Yeah, so that's where you can find me. I do have a Twitter. I do have an Instagram. I sometimes post on Twitter mainly to like share my content. I'm not active on Instagram, but Instagram is a good place if you want to send me a message. So I am open to collaborations. Just hit me up if you want to.
All right. Well, this, I hope, anyways, will not be the last time I have you on here for a podcast. I know it's kind of tough with the time gap and stuff like that, but in the future, definitely try to make it a point to have you on. Or, like we've talked before, if there's something you have in mind for me that you're like, hey, man, I'd really like it if you want to, help me out with something on my end, by all means, let me know, and I will do my best to accommodate. But that being said, thanks again, everybody, for those of you that hung in there with us this evening. I greatly appreciate it. I will not be streaming on Sunday. Or well, I don't want to say I won't be. We'll see. I'll say as of right now, chances are I probably won't, but I'll make a post on the community tab if I don't. But if I do, it'll be around 5-6 o'clock time on Sunday, but we'll see what happens. But again, thanks again, everybody. And if I don't see you Sunday, you'll see me back here in 2 weeks for the next live stream.